Welcome to the I Ching Cafe. My name is Belinda Dubston, and I am delighted you are here with me, whether you are new and this is your first episode with me or a returning follower. I'm so grateful for your support in this community. Right, we are here for our monthly I Ching forecast for September 2025. Can you believe it? We are really moving and shaking now through 2025. Before we get stuck into what the I Ching is asking us to pay attention to this month, we cast our minds back to August 2025, where we had Hexagram 59 dispersing, the warm wind starting to release the obstacles, releasing things that were stuck, starting to get things moving, unearthing things, bringing things out, thawing it out, and allowing us to slowly release and disperse not only the obstacles, but the internal belief systems, the illusions, the belief systems that are holding us locked up in the ice, warming that out, thawing that out, and being able to move. Okay, plus we had Hexagram 64 before completion. So we were all completing things. We were all on a mission of bringing things to a close. What were you working with in September? What were some of the locked issues that started to release? Were you able to feel like you are able to move, able to get out of this locked fixed position, the big thaw, and working with things that are closing off in your life? They might not be closed off just yet, but they are closing off, and how we pay attention to them and close them off well is really important. So if anything came up for you last month that was evidential or interesting related to the I Ching, please do share a comment. Right, September 2025. Let's get cracking into it. Our first hexagram for this month, our main flow of change we are working with, is hexagram 60, limitation. Okay, before you go, oh no, more restriction. No, I want to open up and I want to expand. This hexagram is all about helping us contain overflow, overwhelm, overdoing, too much, too soon. Okay. Structurally, we have a water on the top and a lake on the bottom. So the lake, right, is there like a dam. It already has water in it. And here come the river, right? Maybe multiple rivers pouring into this dam. And if we don't manage this dam, we get a breach of the wall and the water goes rushing down the ravine and there's just too much. So what this hexagram comes to bring is a strategy of how we deal with a lot of flow. Okay, there's two connections to this idea of water, of flow, moving through our lives. And flow can mean a lot of things. It can be energy, it can be time, it can be, maybe you're just really, really busy, or maybe you've got a lot going on, but managing this flow. And what we need to do is we need to control and restrict the pipe. I often use, when talking about this hexagram, the idea of managing a dam, where you have water coming in and you have these controls, these sluice gates, and these mechanisms and systems to help determine how much water we need to let out, to make sure we balance out what is coming in, right? The flow of water coming in, and what do we need to do to release safely the water through those sluice gates in a controlled manner, restricting that flow, containing it, maybe pushing it through a hydroelectric system, right? Maximizing that flow and pushing that out down the bottom to the river as it continues on its way. So in our lives, September, there's flow. We might find that things get really, really hectic or busy, and this hexagram comes to show us the way of how to work with this flow. What are the things that we need to be doing to control and restrict this flow? It's all about preventing everything from overwhelming and flowing over the edge of the dam wall and creating absolute chaos. So we are managing our overwhelm, we are managing our emotions, we are managing our flow, we are putting controls in place. Now, these controls can play off in lots of different ways in our lives. They can be related to the time aspect of your life, right? How do we manage time, control time, book time, or use time, review time? How do we take the time dimension when we have a limit of how much time we have? Right? This is limitation. And how do we put some positive boundaries around our time? It might be the spending of cash, right? Where is the outflow of money? And how do we restrict and control the outflow? So if you've got a business, this can be pointing to how you manage your spend. Okay, what is flowing out? Controlling and restricting outflows, blocking unnecessary outflows. And personal too, your personal finances, right? Relationships, emotional boundaries with other people, all right? That's another control mechanism. How do we keep ourselves in a healthy, balanced state where our own integrity of our own energy is separate from the people around us, but we are connected and bonded to people? This is not about creating a sluice gate blocking us off from other people. It's about managing healthy boundaries. So if you find this is a challenge, like if you've got a rescuer complex, this is really challenging because you want to reach in and help everybody and just be there. And all that does is all that energy gets dissipated. We have to learn how to have healthy boundaries while we love and care for the people around us. Right? We can do both. It's not one or the other. So perhaps that is your challenge this September. And perhaps we have all of them to deal with. Who knows what's going to come along? What I do know is, like working with this hexagram, having a structure, all right, having some control mechanisms, all right, some brakes, some check systems, okay, because remember this dam wall, there's all kinds of sensors that are giving us input, right? How much water is coming in? What is the water pressure? What do we need to do? What are the levers we need to move to control and keep this thing safe and in control? So what are the controls that you are missing? So have a look, work with this in the month of September, and have a look at your life wherever you're feeling that overwhelm, or it's just too much, or there's just too much outflow, or there's too much flow, or there's just, and you feel that stress, right? Go look at those areas and say, what is the control mechanism I'm missing here in this aspect of my life? Do I measure, monitor, control, and adjust? Do I restrict when necessary? Do I know how to close the pipe on this issue when it's too much? Do I know how to do that? All right. That is what we are focusing on in September. And there's so much that we can apply and take from this in our own lives, whether that's, as I mentioned, managing the diary, putting in place ways of breaking up the day, breaking up the month, creating a rhythm, creating controls, checkpoints. What are your metrics of your life that you need to measure and monitor? What's that dashboard that you have in front of you of those metrics that tell you that everything is under control? So we are allowed to be control freaks this month. The caveat with this hexagram is that we can take it too far. One of the aspects of this hexagram is the idea of implementing some austerity measures. Okay, so maybe we're going to experience that in our economies or in our world, where we're going to start to see austerity measures kick in, those limitations and those controls that restrict us from doing what we want to do. Okay, for whatever reason those come about, what are those austerity measures? But they can go too far. They can be too harsh, too critical, too deep, too unnecessary. And we run the risk of, with ourselves and with other people, of being too harsh, too bitter, too severe, too critical with the implementation of our austerity measures, our limitations, because a limitation can become like a noose. It's so tight and it's so hard that it can actually have the complete opposite effect. It can create rebellion, right? And we've seen that in societies where the austerity measures, whether that's free speech or control of movement or whatever it is, where those austerity measures go in hard, too fast, too much, too soon, we see rebellion. And that can happen in your own life. All right. So we're working with finding a balance, healthy boundaries, time, right? Sleep, health, wealth, people, all right? Emotional flow. We are preventing this dam from overflowing. And just think of that idea that if we are controlled and we are giving ourselves space to control that dam, to take charge, think of all that power generated through our hydroelectric plant. So that's what I want you to think about, is that by controlling and sucking in, like creating that restriction, what it does is allows us to concentrate that force and to generate electricity, okay, because we are harnessing that energy through the dam and we are focusing where we are paying attention to the things around us, okay, a positive image allowing us to control our flow. So 2 changing lines this month in the 2nd and the 4th position. So when I do the monthlies, I give you an indication of timing on these lines. It's really an indication just to illustrate how these lines can move throughout the month, okay? And so because we've got 2, it breaks up the month into 3 bits or thirds, okay? So our first changing line matures from the beginning of the month up until about the 10th of September. And from then, our next changing line is likely to start building up its power and mature around about the 20th of September. And then we start moving more fully into our second hexagram as the change evolves throughout the month. So let's have a look at these changing lines. In position 2, this line is calling us to act. Okay, so it's an interesting line in that the hexagram is all about the self-imposed limitation, right? The restricting of things. And this line says something has come up, and pay attention, particularly the first 10 days of the month. Something has come up where we have to seize the moment. Carpe diem. Seize the day, seize the moment. There's some opportunity that has whoosh come up in front of us that needs to get done, that needs our energy. And if we allow our self-imposed limitation, our hesitation, our uncertainty, our worry about doing the wrong thing, hold us back, we're going to miss this moment. Okay, so that's almost limitation in an upside down manner. There is a risk that our hesitation, right, our wanting to hold back and not be sure, get more information or resist, okay, until we have the whole picture, that whole process of resisting and procrastinating is actually putting an opportunity at risk, particularly in the first part of the month. So where you feel, where the surge of energy says act, the risk is thinking, okay, well, the I Ching says restrict and limit. Okay, we've got to hold back. We've got to not do. We've got to control. We've got to put in place, the mechanisms. There's something here that is contrary to that. And our own inner limitation, right, our hesitation to take the action, to take the leap, is going to get us to miss that opportunity. All right, so what we're going to do for the first part of the month is start putting in place and working with these ideas of controls. But when the moment is ripe, when we feel, oh, here comes a thing, here's the moment to act, here's the moment to do something, be aware that it might be a missed opportunity if we don't act. Okay, so just stay open to what's happening around you, to how you're feeling about things, and where you feel like, oh, I'm not sure, and should I, and that hesitation, let's reevaluate next week. When you get that, say, oh, okay, maybe this is this changing line trying to get me to take the opportunity. We don't want to miss this. This is something really special that we can switch on in our lives. Okay, changing line number 4 is all about understanding what it means to have a natural restriction or a limitation, right? A limitation that makes sense. And what it's cautioning us against is using limitation to force the issue, right? We're putting in place a control to force an outcome, right? And that requires so much energy, because when a limitation is unnatural, it requires a lot of energy for us to hold it in place. Whereas a limitation that is in its right space and time gets put in place and it supports flow, but it doesn't require so much work. There's something here where we are needing to be in a more natural space, right? To be relaxed, to be calm, to be aligned and accepting of the limitation that makes sense, and to avoid forcing limitations, forcing a control because I want to control when it doesn't make sense for the thing that you're trying to control. If we take the idea of water, if you have a gradient and you're running water down a slope, okay, it makes sense to put in place a little concrete barrier or an aqueduct that you can funnel the water in a particular direction. The water is moving downhill. We are using the natural energy of the water that's going downhill anyway. We just are directing it in a particular direction. If we try and put in place a control to force water to go uphill, we have to have pumps and all kinds of things to try and force the control into this water. Okay, so it's out of flow, literally, of the flow. And part of this process of working with this changing line is to remind us to be natural, to be at ease, to be accepting of a positive limitation. Perhaps there's a limitation that makes sense, but there's a rebellion, okay, because we don't want to feel restricted or that we have to do things in a particular way. But also it's about, if you're putting in place that control, is that if it's really requiring a lot of work and energy to maintain this control, it's not the right control. Find a control that's natural, that makes sense for the situation you're in. Particularly in your business, if you've got issues with staff or team or production or profitability, whatever it is, think about what is the control mechanism that makes sense for what you are doing and what you are trying to achieve. Not one you pulled out of a textbook, all right? Does it make sense for what you are trying to do? Okay, so those are our changing lines, taking us through the month towards the second outcome hexagram, a relating flow of change or path to victory. And this is the lovely hexagram 17, following. Okay, following speaks this idea of leadership. Okay, but what it means is that to be a great leader, to have people who follow us, we need to follow something of the highest. Okay, so it's an interesting idea of like the concept of to lead is to serve. It's that kind of principle. But what it talks about is it talks about creating a following, being a leader, all right, leading others, creating a following behind us, a natural following where we just are drawing people towards us, and we follow something, a higher principle. The higher the principle we are following, the better the idea, the clearer the concept, the more meaningful is the thing that we are following, the easier it is to attract a following. Okay, so we don't have to coerce people, bribe them, okay, tell them fake stories to get them to follow us. If those are the people that are following us and they are taking that bait, and the reason they are following us is because we're giving them the bait, we're giving them the rebates, we're giving them the kickbacks, okay, the incentives to follow us, they are not our people. What we have to do is we have to go back to what it is that we are following, what's important, what's our lodestar that is guiding us forward, and lift the game on that picture, and people naturally come. And yes, you'll have the riffraff that stay because, well, fear of missing out. I don't want to miss out here. Other people are here. But you draw to the people who are connected to what you're trying to do, true followers. And it is a wonderful hexagram of the higher we focus on that star, all right, that lodestar, the higher our following, the more important and meaningful our purpose is. The natural affinity people pick up with what we're trying to do and they follow us. So going back to a business example, if you are trying to increase your following, have a look at what it is that you are following. What's your intention, your purpose, your underlying drive? What is that lodestar that is moving you forward? If you deepen that, you deepen the base. And something about this process of what are we following and who is following us in return and where are we leading in our lives, and being at peace and finding a natural affinity for that of just following and everything moving with us. Just like think about the planets moving around the sun. There's this following, right? There's this natural attraction. The planets don't have to force the issue. Everyone's just in their orbit attached to the sun. Okay, and that idea is what we are trying to work towards. And perhaps going back to this idea of limitations that don't get forced, natural limitations. Isn't gravity the ultimate limitation that's natural? That we are just in a gravitational pull. We don't have to work, we don't have to stress. It's just there. And that teaches us something about following too. Well, it's going to be an interesting month. Let's see what happens as we follow and as we put in place those healthy controls that help us manage our flow and maximize that hydroelectric plant, right? Get every grain of juice out of the work that we're doing. Let's be controlled and let's embrace the idea that sometimes controls and boundaries and restrictions and limitations is the most productive, creative thing that we can do with our time. Right, well, good luck with September. We're going to get stuck into our weeklies pretty soon. So until then, take care. And of course, you know what to do. Like or thumbs up if this was valuable. Subscribe, hit the follow button, the bell, the whole jazz if you'd like to join us on the regular. And I will see you very, very soon.